A, meeting opening. A1, call to order. A2, adoption of the agenda. Are there any consent agenda items that a board member would like to have discussed as an action item? Hearing none, do I have a motion that the governing board adopt the meeting agenda?
I move that we adopt the meeting agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Oropesa. Is there a second?
I second it.
Thank you, Mr. Navarez. All those in favor say aye. Aye. The motion passes. Moving to B, executive session. B1, I call for a motion that the governing board enter into executive session.
I move that the governing board move to executive session.
Thank you, Mr. Navarez. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. De Ocampo. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes, and we are now in executive session. And we will take a 10-minute recess until 6 o'clock. allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will now observe a 30-second moment of silence. Thank you. We'll move to D, public comment, D1. We have no public comment today. We'll go to E, consent agenda. E1, approval of consent agenda items. I call for a motion that the governing board approve consent agenda items E2 through E21.
I move that we approve consent agenda items E2 through E21.
Thank you, Mr. Oropesa. Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. De Ocampo. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes. Moving to F, board policies. F1, I call for a motion that the governing board approve the first reading of policy JIH, student interrogation, searches, and arrests.
I move that we accept administration recommendation to approve the first reading of policy JIH, student interrogation, searches, and arrests.
Thank you, Ms. De Ocampo. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Mr. Oropesa. Any discussion?
This is a massive overhaul of this policy. And there was a part in here. Okay. Give me a second here. I'm sorry. I never can get to where I want to be.
No problem. Take your time.
Is this the one that talks about where they... No, I have no questions about this one.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Moving to F2, the first reading and adoption of policy GDO. I call for a motion that the governing board approve the first reading of policy GDO, evaluation of support staff members.
I move that the board approve the first and second reading of policy GDO, evaluation of support staff members.
Mr. Solorio, can you motion for the first reading and not the second reading?
Okay.
It is the first and adoption, first and second reading.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. I misinformed myself.
I'm good.
Yes, I accept your motion, Mr. Solorio.
I second it.
Thank you, Mr. Narvaez. Any discussion?
I just need a clarification, and that it isn't really any change. It just says each new and reassigned staff member shall be evaluated. Reassigned, that means if you're changing your position, it's not if you're just moving from Madrid to CLA.
Thank you for the question, Ms. De Ocampo. In this context, I believe it would be the context of just reassign, like annually reassign to your NOA. The intention with this request for this change is because currently, as you could see, our policy is we're doing 3-month evaluations, 6-month evaluations, and then annually. And we just think it's an extra step that it's just a barrier we want to kind of remove and just do a 3-month probationary evaluation of our new staff members, and then annually every staff member will just be evaluated annually. And that if a supervisor does want to provide feedback or extra support or an additional evaluation, they can at any time. We're just,
And I think that's reasonable. I think we can over-evaluate, just like I think we can over-test.
it was a
But I wasn't real clear on what reassigned meant. Does that mean if I change from
that,
being child and nutrition worker at Madrid to child and nutrition worker at Sevilla, I now fall into this category?
Not a child nutrition, maybe that would be it, but what this would be, what I think what this would be referring to is if I was an instructional assistant at even the same school, and then I now became a secretary at that school
That I understand.
role. You're like a clerk.
Okay,
Sorry if I did that.
okay, thank you.
Yes, anytime you take a new position, you are kind of starting with the initial again, so they'll have a 3-month in a new position. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes. Moving to F3, I call for a motion that the governing board approve the first reading and adoption of policy IMA teaching methods.
I move that the governing board approve the first reading and adoption of policy IMA teaching methods.
Thank you, Mr. Navarez. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Solorio. Any discussion?
Again, I just need clarification. When I'm all for lesson plans. I was blown away when I visited a school this last semester and asked what they did about lesson plans because my student that I was supervising was struggling, and her team said they were not required to do lesson plans, and that I could never have existed without lesson plans. So when I see this, that establishing to set forth, are we saying that we're going to have a common practice that all teachers need to use the same? Is there an overlying format that everybody has to use, or is it going to be site specific? There was mention here about doing it by unit as opposed to weekly. Is there some flexibility, is I guess what I'm asking.
I want to clarify that the only change is the supplemental materials on here, but could we also get your question asked?
Good point. You are right. I asked a question that was beyond the scope of this policy.
Would you like the superintendent or their team to follow up on your?
Actually follow up on it myself.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? I will say that we probably don't use cassette tapes or film strip transparencies anymore, but I remember the transparencies in the overhead.
Oh, I remember the film strips.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 The motion passes. Moving to F4, I call for a motion that the governing board approve the first reading and adoption of policy JJE, student fundraising activities.
I move that the governing board approve the first reading and adoption of policy JJ, student fundraising activities.
Thank you, Mr. Navarez. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Oropesa. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 This motion passes. Moving to F5, I call for a motion that the governing board approve the first reading and adoption of policy KEC, public concerns/complaints about instructional resources.
I move that we approve the first reading and adoption of policy KE, public concerns, complaints about instructional resources.
Thank you, Mr. Oropesa. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. De Ocampo. Discussion?
This is something that has come about because of legislation.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Arizona Revised Statutes is essentially all the changes that have been made in this policy.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes. Moving to G, business services. G1, I call for a motion that the governing board approve the proposed 2024-2025 expenditure budget and sign the proposed summary.
I move that the governing board approve the proposed 2024-2025 expenditure budget and sign the proposed summary.
Thank you, Mr. Navarez. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Oropesa. We will now have presentation from Business Services Director Daniel Coffinger, and then we'll open it up to questions from the governing board.
Good evening, President Conchas, members of the governing board, and Dr. Maez. I wanted to speak to a couple key points on the proposed budget for the FY25 school year, 2024-2025 school year. And I did the same thing last time, sorry. I'm going to jump to the end and work my way back, if this works for me. Okay, perfect. All right, as you may or may not know, our state legislature has yet to pass a state budget. So because of our schedule with our governing board meetings and the requirements of when we need to pass our adopted budget, we are here presenting rather early, but at this time we are on draft forms. The Office of the Arizona Auditor General produces draft forms with best guesses and forecasts as to what they believe will happen. They are acceptable as a proposed budget and an adopted budget, and there is the caveat that maybe you'll be revising early in the year if there are major changes to the draft forms that were forecasted. All right. So wanted to speak to ADM as it is the main piece, the main factor in the funding formula for both our M&O budget, maintenance and operations budget, and capital budget. So our ADM that we are funded upon is based on the 100th day of our ADM, which stands for average daily membership, as a reminder. To give you an example, I want to make sure there's sometimes a not 100% understanding of this, but it's not a snapshot of the 100th day, it is that average daily membership of the 100th day. So a student that's here on day 1 of the school year through the 100th day will receive 100% of funding for that student, even if they left on the 101st day. A student that shows up, which our 100th day is in January, student that shows up just after first quarter, let's say, 50 days through the school year, will get half the funding for them for the year, because they were here for half of that time. On the 100th day, if they show up, we'll get 1% of the funding for that student. So the timing of when we're getting the enrollment is big to the funding. It's not just a snapshot of who's here on the 100th day. So that's important to understand. As as we've been looking at our enrollment weekly updates and all that, that's important to understand when the students are coming and going has a role in the funding. So to give you an idea of what we did to base this budget on, our 100th day, let me go back a little bit here. I know we're all excited that our enrollment stayed flat. We predicted a decrease. At the end of the year, we saw flat, maybe even a little bit of an increase compared to previous year. However, on the 100th day, we were still 2% compared to the 100th day from the previous year. So funding-wise, it's a 2% decline. We're excited that they're here, but in essence, any student that shows up after that 100th day, we're not funding. We're not funded for, rather, is what I mean to say. So just something to think about. So what this budget is based on was the exact same ADM as the 100th day from FY24. This current year that we're in, next year's budget, we're basing on the exact same students coming. So there was a decline from previous year's 100th day, but we're basing it on that same 100th day as though the funding would stay flat. Just to give you an idea kind of the methodology there. So we had budgeted on a decline from that 100th day from previous years historically for the last 5 years or so. Since we saw it flat at the end of the year, we thought let's keep it at the same as the 100th day of this current FY24 year. All right. Looking at, as we all know, ESSER is expiring and very much spent at this point. And so most of the changes we'll see here. Can I get back to that first page? Ruben, please. Well, sorry, that one. Yep, thank you. Okay, so most of the highlighted spots you see there, I will say are related to ESSER ending. There is not a spot in our budget forms to put our M&O carry forward. There's no, put your carry forward here. It's built into the budget somewhere. So you have to plug it in somewhere even though you were going to retain a portion of that money. So I should have highlighted that one too. Our fourth line over from the top there, employee benefits under that 1,000, that $20 million. That is where we stick our carry forward because it's got to go somewhere. So as we've been fortunate to be able to capture some of our typical expenses and from prior year and ESSER and other ways. We have started to spend some of those prior year savings. One example of that would be the solar project we did, and we transferred $3 million of M&O towards our capital to have the ability to do that. So compared to the previous year, we're going to see a decline in that spot because it's that carry forward. It's not really the benefits, it's just that where that carry forward lives. So that would be the reason as to why that number is decreasing as we have made some choices. Solar is obviously the big one there. That $3 million from M&O is making that one decline. The other ones that I highlighted there are increases, and this is also due to ESSER. These were positions, for the most part, that were living in ESSER, and with the expiration of ESSER, now they got to come back to M&O. So you see an increase to those lines for some of those salaries, for the most part, as they've come back to M&O. And they weren't not there in the previous year. And that's all this is comparison, those plus or minuses that are highlighted over there as previous year. So those are those would be the points that, those are pretty big fluctuations that we might not see every year. Well, ESSER ended, and that would be a reason we start to see a little larger change from the previous year on those. The capital budget, if you go to the next one, please. Thank you. Not much change here at all. As you can see there, $19.5 million previous year. Now we're at 19.4 if we round up. So you could dedicate that to the 2% decline on that 100th day. It's we're going down just slightly there. And let's see. So as always, we'll go to that last one if you would. Thank you. The proposed budget is an estimate. This year's not even over, right? We don't know what our expenditures are going to be for the next month and a half. We estimate that. We don't know what our final carry forward is going to be due to that. So we're doing the best we can in this time to propose a budget that will be based on current year funding on students that we don't know who's going to show up on that first day. So it's, you're doing your best. So these will all be trued up at some point, hopefully towards the end of the year. We don't have to do a December revision, but when those come to fruition and we know our actual carry forward of this year, and we can get some much more realistic and truer numbers at the end of the year, FY25. But proposed budget is based on estimates as best we can at this point. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the governing board?
You talking about the 100th day ADM decreased. Have we changed? I thought at some point in time we changed and our funding was not strictly tied to the 100th day. There was some point of the funding that was based on the actual attendance each day.
Attendance is not a piece of it.
It's enrollment, right?
Enrollment. So it is.
I thought we did it to match what the
100th
charter
day.
schools do, where they get funded. Okay, I'll be quiet.
The piece I would say, based on the question, I'm hearing that is, remember it's an average. It's a range, and we take the average of that first day to that 100th day, and what % of that time was that student enrolled with us. So at the 100th day is the end of the average. After that, it's not a part of the average calculation of that ADM.
Okay, I'll come and meet with you later.
All right, fair enough.
Because I thought things had changed somewhat along there. Okay.
Any other questions?
Yes, and then I keep hearing about how there's going to be a 4% decrease in our federal funding. Where's that reflected in here?
Those are the grant funds you can find. I don't know off the top of my head. It's somewhere in the 3 to 6 page range, where you don't have to break out budgets or anything like that. You just have an overall budget for Title I. There's an overall budget that you're planning to spend there. So it's not a requirement as for the adopted budget, the proposed budget that needs to be governing board approved.
Okay.
I would, I believe, Ms. Bill, you can speak a little more to that with federal projects. I do believe there is, I'm speculating here a little bit, but I do believe there has been a little bit of a decrease, but historically, I think that has been the case before, and it has been throughout the year. It's gone up, some of those allocations, but I'm speculating a little bit on the federal projects there.
Yeah, we actually did have a significant decrease in federal funding, and we can provide an update to the board on that, or a presentation
Thank you.
at a future board meeting.
Okay, thank you, because I thought there was a significant,
Yes, we did. Thank you.
so we better get those new students in before the 100th day.
And that's actually,
Day one is even better.
I know our cabinet this morning was discussing the opportunities that we could consider walking in our community before the school year starts, and visiting, like even some of the apartment complexes, letting kids know that school will be starting, and getting them excited about it. And so this is just another reason that compels us to consider some innovative ways to make sure our kids know that we want them here on the first day of school. So thank you.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 The motion passes. Moving to G2. I call for a motion that the governing board approve the intergovernmental agreement to support early childhood education.
I move that the governing board approve the intergovernmental, IGA?
Agreement, yeah?
Agreement for early childhood education.
Thank you, Mr. Oropesa. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. De Ocampo. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Moving to H, new business. H1, I call for a motion that the governing board... One second. I call for a motion that the governing board to consider and, if advisable, adopt the attached resolution to sell district property to the city of Phoenix.
I move that the governing board consider and possibly adopt the resolution to sell district property to the city of Phoenix.
Thank you, Mr. Oropesa. Is there a second?
I'll second, as long as we make sure we say the sale of the Grand Avenue parcel.
Thank you, Ms. De Ocampo. And discussion?
Yeah, with this item, it was really nice to see this process be highlighted on the local news. Big shout out to Gabriel for the work he did there to set that up, and Dr. Mez, always well representing our district. That does mean, though, we do have eyes on our district, and I forgot to do this last time in this public setting, so I'll do it here and continue to do so every step along the way. Through the process, I've been providing professional guidance to the district, and along with the nonprofit and other partners that we've been working with, and all of that has been done on a volunteer basis, and will continue to be done on a volunteer basis. So there's no conflict of interest with me, my role in assisting this process, and I'm committed to keeping it that way through the duration of the process. So there'll be no benefit to myself in any capacity other than seeing our district take this very bold step in helping out our community in this way.
Thank you, Mr. Solorio. We really appreciate your guidance and your professionalism throughout this whole process. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 That motion passes. Moving to H2. This is a long one, so please, let's see. Can I move it before I call for a motion? I call for a motion that the governing board consider, discuss, amend, if desired, and if deemable, deemed advisable, to adopt a resolution ordering and calling a special budget override election to be held in and for the district and declaring the deadline for submitting arguments for and against the election to the Maricopa County Superintendent as August 9th, 2024 at 5 p.m. and approving the governing board's argument in support of the special maintenance and operation budget override election. And I would like to move myself that the governing board consider, discuss, amend if desired, and if deemed advisable, to adopt a resolution ordering and calling a special budget override election to be held in and for the district and declaring the deadline for submitting arguments for and against the election to the Maricopa County Superintendent as August 9th, 2024 at 5 p.m. and approving the governing board's argument in support of the special maintenance and operation budget override election. Do I have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Mr. Oropesa. Discussion?
No.
This is such an important thing for us to do. And as important as it is, it still hurts my heart in some ways that we have to go to our voters and do this as a special election when we can't get the state to fund us at a level where we can support ourselves. I think it's a sad commentary on the state of education in Arizona that every school district has to go through this every few years in order to keep ourselves financially able to provide the quality of education that we want. So yes, we have to do it.
Any other discussion?
No.
I would like to emphasize in our argument document that this is not a tax increase
Yeah.
whatsoever.
It's true.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes. Moving to H3. I call for a motion that the governing board approve the purchase of general education classroom furniture not to exceed $3.3 million from School Source Arizona through the 1 GPA contract.
I move that the governing board approve the purchase of general education classroom furniture not to exceed $3.3 million from School Source AZ through the 1 GPA contract.
Thank you, Mr. Narvaez. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Dale Campo. Does any governing board member have any questions or need specific clarifications from Mr. Coffinger? We can ask him to come to the podium.
Just a small clarification. This is the project that we've been going through in the last year where they've been evaluating furniture and things like that. We had samples in that. Is this the same project as that?
That's correct, yes. We've had the furniture committee for over a year. Scott started that one before I got here. This is general education furniture, the approval and special area as well as special education furniture are going to be separate, but hopefully within this school year as well. We're working on that. We've been working with those teams to get those classrooms what they need as well. So it should be a complete overhaul, but this item is for the general education furniture, correct?
When are we expected, if approved, when are we expecting delivery?
So we've been guaranteed that we will be able to have all of our sites refreshed, completely swapped for before the end of summer next year, so in one school year.
Okay.
We haven't worked out all the logistics, but should be around 2 schools for each break, and then because we don't want to obviously be doing this while students are in class, so it's crazy during those breaks as they're going to swap out 2 schools for those weeks. More probably during winter break for the 2 weeks, and then the rest over summer.
So this is piecemeal throughout the
Correct,
school year.
and
Okay.
one of the things that the committee did was based on the rating of the current state of the furniture. Those schools are prioritized first, but that was prior to us learning that we were going to be able to do it all in 1 year. We thought it would be 2 years at that point, so that was why we took that step. But
Okay.
we were pleased to find out it would be 1 year.
I was impressed by how many people you included in the, because I have been in the situation where you come into school one day and you got all new furniture and you didn't even ask for it. So this was the fact that you went through this long, extensive process, and I actually did go view the furniture at one point. It's impressive, and I think it's better received by the faculty and have better ideas of how to use it when they have been a part of deciding how it will fit into their classroom. And you were even so thorough, you even did a teacher standing podium, which I think is, especially in upper grades, is very important. And the teacher's desk and filing cabinet are all no big clunky things anymore. I appreciate the way that you have options for the K2 tables versus the desks, or I guess they're not desks, they're tables that put together. And then you even thought out having some metal or plastic boxes for them to store, for students to store their backpacks and things in, because that can create a huge mess. So thank you to you and your committee for all the thoughtfulness that you put into this.
Thank you for your comments. I would just, I would like to say, we wanted to make sure that educators had a piece of the decision-making in all this. And we even went down to site-specific, teacher-specific, what would they like to see in their classrooms? And do you want a book box, like you're saying, or a metal hook for the backpacks? That's preference. And we were able to, with Google Sheets and all that good technology nowadays, be able to even get their wishes. And that's part of our quote, and that's what they will receive.
And all royal blue chairs, so nobody's fighting over what color chair they get. Good thinking. The other thing is the plastic tops. I have seen so many classrooms this year where the teachers and the students take such advantage of using their desktops to do note-taking and math calculations. It's just a wonderful tool. Thank you for all the hard work.
Thank you.
And I just want to emphasize at the bottom of the presentation, it says Business Services has also been working with special education and special area teachers to rate their furniture and select new furniture options. These selections will be sent to vendors for quotes in the near future and will be on the same replacement schedule as general education furniture. I just wanted to highlight that and point that out. Any other comments or communications or questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes. Moving to H4. I call for a motion that the governing board approve the superintendent's performance pay for the 2023-2024 school year.
I move that the governing board approve the superintendent's performance pay for the 2023-2024 school year.
Thank you, Ms. De Ocampo. Is there a second?
I second it.
Thank you, Mr. Navarez. Discussion?
Our superintendent's done a great job, and so I think it is our responsibility as a board to approve this, and it's been just wonderful having her ever since she started, and so I consider this a vote of confidence as well from our board to our superintendent. She's been excellent since she's been here.
I can't believe it's been 3 years of. My goodness, how time flies. But yes, this is definitely a celebration of what Dr. Maez has done for not only us as a district, but for our whole community, and how she has worked so hard to bring the community together collaboratively, and we see the results of that every day.
I'll just add that I really appreciate Dr. Maez's exemplary leadership. She plays an active role in being an active listener to students, staff, families, the association. And you hear it all around the district, the great support that she provides, including, other district superintendents. I've heard comments on how exemplary Dr. Maez is, and I just love that she's in this space here with our district.
Thank you, Dr. Maez, for your service to Alhambra. We hope to continue seeing you here for many, many, many decades. And just know that you have my wholeheartedly support, and you have the support from the governing board. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes. Moving to I, comments and communications. I1, comments from governing board members.
I just want to add, I really appreciate seeing a lot of it, seeing the spreadsheet and knowing that there's a lot of fun activities going on with the students for the summer. But I also was able to stop by a few schools to see some of that, and particularly the financial literacy with junior achievements. I hope to see additional programs along the summer as long as I can stop by. But I just love the fact that that exists. I know for me it was a very memorable event in my life to have these opportunities, but it was also something that helped me grow and explore additional things out, that were still educational, but also just outside of the traditional norms that you go through throughout the school year. So thank you for having that system in play and engaging our students and families to want to do that and joining that opportunity.
I too had the opportunity to visit some of the summer camps. Fun things going on along with learning. Learning can be fun, and I think sometimes we forget that. I know Sister Cleofa did not believe learning could be fun. She wanted to make it miserable, I'm sure. But I do know that learning can be fun, and you saw it in the summer camps the last couple of weeks when I've gone and visited. I saw lots of writing, I saw math, I saw lots of creative ideas going on. And it wasn't just the little kids that were enjoying themselves. Sometimes the upper grade kids are like, not me, I'm not going to enjoy this. But they were smiling and having a good time too. And it was impressive to see the topics that were being considered and the way the discussions were going on and the activities that were all involved with it. One of the pieces I really appreciated was the inclusionary aspect of it, how we included so many of our special needs children into the projects and the activities that were going on. I only hope that next year we can build on it and make it be even bigger and better. We need to get the word out. I would have liked to have had more students come and show up, but we got to start. So now we just have to figure out how to advertise it and get more kids excited about joining in and coming and being a part of it. I guess I need to say thanks to Karen and her team. That was an incredible amount of work. Just putting the schedule together would have been overwhelming for me. But they did a fantastic job of coming up with themes and activities to support all of that. So thanks to her and her team as well.
Any other comments? I want to shout out our child nutrition department. Brianne's in the crowd today. If you go to our website, you can see the summer meals program, and you can also go to a really cool map that is on Google, leads you to Google, and it shows you every school and what is their address, what time are they serving breakfast and lunch, and what days. And so it's a really great resource for our kids, and thank you so much for executing that program. Okay, moving to I2, governing board direction and/or agenda item requests. Going once, going twice. Moving to I3, comments from the superintendent.
Good evening, everyone. For this evening, the team voted that I would be the only one to give the updates. And yeah. But I just want to thank everyone. I appreciate those that visited our summer camp. And yes, it's been really neat to see how engaged our kids have been. And like Ms. Del Campo mentioned, we're excited for this beginning and even more excited to ensure that the word will get out and more kids, that we can grow the program for the following year, because our goal is to fill our schools in the summer and to keep kids engaged. So a big thank you to our leaders for supporting that process, our teachers and support staff who taught. And then also right now we have teachers learning all over the building and have been excited about that. And so thanks to those who are teaching courses, and thanks to our teachers who are so committed to learning. And aside from that, everyone's just working hard to plan for the next school year. So we're excited for even greater things ahead. So thank you all for all your hard work, and may you have a wonderful evening and weekend.
Thank you, Dr. Myers. Thank you to the cabinet too for being here and for all your hard work. Moving to J, meeting closing. J1, the next governing board meeting will be held on June 27th, 2024. I will not be here, and so our vice president will lead the meeting if they're going to be here.
Thanks for the warning. Africa that week?
Are you?
No.
Okay. So thank you for doing that. J2, calendar of events. You can check out the AESD calendar by visiting the Alhambra website. And there's a lot going on this month. One thing I want to highlight is August 2nd is the back to school celebration, which is one of my favorite things. Also, one of my favorite things is the July 22 to the July 22nd to 23rd is the AESD Leadership Conference. Moving to J3, adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I move to adjourn.
Thank you, Ms. Florio. Second, Mr. Oropesa. And discussion is that you cannot leave the building without signing all of Dana's documents. All those in favor say aye.
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 This meeting is adjourned.